There we go. Yeah, also I did not realize that I can't record on StreamYard. I knew I was limited form at a time, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was going to not allow me to record too. So either way, we got it done now, and I just realized my microphone cord is in the way. So let's um
Excellent.
where are you gonna go? You're gonna go there. All right. Woo. Okay. I don't know what I do for this. Are you good to go?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll go ahead and do the official intro. I'll probably go ahead and put in the rest of this too. But anyway, um,
Uh,
hi, welcome to Comics Unscripted, the podcast for Foreign Press Comics. I'm your host Kyler Merrill, and today we have Dave Hingley. He is the creator behind Windbreaker, which is currently on Kickstarter. His work has also been found in two of my own anthologies, Fletcher Cross and Comics in the Kitchen, and three and Pandemics and Panels. You're in that one too, I think.
yeah,
But so yeah, that's who you are. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Not so bad. It's a nice. Well, it's nice now. It was proper raining earlier on, so yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what we had the last.
Proper English. All we do is talk about the weather, right?
I was gonna say that's what I was gonna say too. Yeah, I walked outside today thinking like I was gonna do some work on just some woodworking projects I've been supposed to be doing, and
Yeah.
it has. I could see my breath. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this right now. This is ridiculous. I was not prepared for that level of cold today. Um, as we gone back to the heat. But anyway, let's go ahead and start with just talking about what are you working on right now? Like we're drawing today. What did you decide to what did you land on?
Well, today's stuff, I'm just drawing. Today, I'll just be drawing John Sterling, doing a few bits of stuff.
Okay.
Running around. Maybe John Sterling's the main character on Windbreaker. It's one of these things. It's like I've spent the last 8 months or thereabouts drawing John all the time,
Mhm.
and it's like an old friend who doesn't want to quite want to let go just yet. Um,
Yeah.
and seeing as we're just sitting here doodling, I'll just doodle that stuff for now.
Yeah.
And then
That's
it's
kind
like
of go ahead.
sorry, go on. I was
No,
gonna say
you're
when the
good.
next project, when the next project comes along, when the next idea germinates and you get that idea, then you're all about that next whatever that next character is. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of had a similar thing. I started a new sketchbook and I had this idea for this character and I don't know. I mean, I had the idea. I'm not gonna really say what it is, but like it's like I just started drawing and so like I drew her and then I had somewhere else I just was doodling her on another piece of paper. Like I've just been doing it all over. I don't really know what it's gonna be yet, but it's just she's been living in my head. And so I'm just like I guess I gotta keep drawing. But keep drawing her, you know. Um
yeah,
but let's I mean we'll go ahead and do some of the more traditional interview questions as well, because like I said, we haven't spoken before, even though you have been in three of my anthologies. But what got you into comics? What got you started doing this whole thing?
that's a good question, and it's I don't know. I think as a child you're almost geared into liking comics. There's no
Hmm.
sort of like. I opened the book and suddenly there was this thing with pictures on. I think as children you're very easily drawn to these things, but I
Hmm.
think for a lot of people the sort of the shape of the story is that we liked it when we were kids. Something happened when we hit a certain age and we stopped reading it, and then at a certain point something else happens and we get back into it,
Hmm.
and it's usually that's the bit we want to talk about. And um, I sort of was into comics as a young kid, but Britain in the 80s, so certain
Uh-huh.
things like the concepts of the comic shop don't really exist. It's whatever you had, whatever you could find at the newsagent.
Hmm.
So there's no sort of like I'm collecting X-Men or Spider-Man. It's like, oh, there's a Thundercats comic. Okay, I'm reading that today.
Yeah.
Um, so my childhood was that sort of thing, reading the Beano, which is a kids anthology comic type thing,
Hmm.
Transformers, like this. And then when I got to about 18 or 19, I'd stopped reading comics for a lot of time, but I was at art college, and there was a comic competition I put a strip in for, and it got shortlisted. I was like, this is amazing. Nothing happened with it. I mean, it didn't win, but it was interesting to do. And I went to university, did art at university, but the comics sort of took a back seat. It was more serious art, lots of live drawing, stuff like this. And it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago where I'd watched my co-workers in their lunch breaks sketch big drawings of X-Men and Avengers fighting, and that sort of opened the door to me getting interested in comics as an art form, as a way of telling stories and a way of communicating again. And since then I've been doing lots of anthologies and putting my own books out, and it's been super fun and interesting, So,
Yeah, I like just to kind of see if I can track where as far as which one was your first like published comic? What was your first published work?
so my first published book would have been an anthology, and it would have been for Nottingham Comic Con, and it was a collaborative piece. It was written by a guy called Lee Brandwick, who we collaborated on a bunch of different comics projects, sort of back in the day. And it was always fun, sort of collaborating on a script or an idea. And we did I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 comic projects together, for various sort of anthologies and things like this. And after a few years, I started to do more solo pieces, and I've been sort of doing mainly solo stuff since then. Because if Lee ever come back with a script and it was a good one, then we're doing it with bells. It was a good collaborative relationship, and the door is still open. The door is still open with that one. It's just like myself. He's got a family and there are demands on his time. So But,
So have you been? I mean, is so? What am I trying to say? Like, have most of the things that you've been working on been, working on for? That's not what I was trying to ask. What was I going to say? Has it been mostly like working for yourself in a way, like working for, like, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what I'm
I
trying
know
to
you
say.
said. Yeah, most of the stuff I make is the stuff I write and make myself now. Right.
Yeah.
So I've got a 5-series book called Space Crash. It's a silent sci-fi story, and I spent probably about 2 years sort of putting all that together. So I was making a book every 6 months or so. But
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it sounds impressive, but you have to remember with it, because it was a silent comic, so there's no
That's true.
there's no dialogue, so you save yourself a whole step,
Yeah.
But
But the art is a lot harder when it's silent.
yeah. I mean, we sort of started cheating it a little bit, and by issue 2, we were doing we're putting icons in speech balloons, so it's not still silent, but it's the way you can sort of get around
I've
that.
done the same thing. I got you.
Yeah, and it was an artistic choice born of necessity. It was issue 1 was an Inktober project, so every page was based on the day's prompt.
Yeah.
And there was sort of like a logistical questions, or do I want to spend the time drawing the page, or do I want to spend the time lettering the page? And so we made the decision very quickly to sort of keep it silent, and then once I'd done issue 1, I was like, okay, let's plot out the remaining issues. So and then I was in production mode then for the next 2 years, just making a book, putting it out, get the next book out, and so on and so forth. And it was quite it was fortuitous actually. I just finished issue 5, the last issue, and I thought, oh, we're going to start writing something soon. And then literally the idea for Windbreaker just turned up, and he sort of knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm here. Will you make me, please?" And so I did.
I just think that's pretty like crazy, and just in that like you went from one thing immediately into like you've been going from projects, you've been working pretty much nonstop at my point. You've been going from one thing to the other. And that's on top of the smaller anthology things that you've done since then. Because like I mentioned, you've been in 3 anthologies for Foreign Press, and so that's like 3 separate things right there. You've been doing plenty of
Yeah,
other things in the meantime, so you've kept a pretty tight schedule then.
yeah. It's been it's something of a whirlwind, but the big plus is you never get the situation where you sat down going, oh, what am I going to draw? What am I going to write about? Because you've either got something to shoot for, like, oh, there's an anthology that needs a 3-page story or 4-page story, so you write that story and you punt that out, or you're already working on something, so you're making that,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's kind of like what we talked about sort of at the beginning when I was talking about what you were drawing. Like it's good that there's always something to be doing. You never are
yeah,
stuck being like, I don't know what to like. There's always some work to be done, which is good in a way, I think, because it always means there's some kind of direction.
yeah, absolutely.
And,
And I mean, comics is it's to a certain extent it's labor intensive in that you have to put the time in, you have to sort of spend as long as it takes to get the result that you want. But I mean, there are more intensive things you could really do, like animation. That's I think a bit more intensive.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I got into comics is because I trained as a 2D animator years ago, and after a bit, it's very difficult to say I'm just going to quickly animate a 10-second thing, because you just can't do that. Comics gives you the option to sort of tell a story a short story over, say, 4-5 pages, and make it to a reasonable sort of visual appeal and get it out there in a time scale that doesn't it won't sink the rest of the year, sort of thing.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, because that is what I was just about to ask. Ask what you do for your day job. But is it animation or is it something outside of that?
It's tangentially related to animation. I'm sort of like the slightly more geeky type of animator who will sort of come up with solutions for problems, how do we animate X, Y, and Z? So I will take care of that. Or how do we get data from a rig or a character to use in a different way? Then my job usually is to take care of that sort of thing. So yeah.
And then you did all this, you've done all the anthologies, and like we said, you finished Spacecraft, so now you're on to Windbreaker, which is currently on Kickstarter now. So can you go ahead and give an example, or go ahead and explain what that is?
Sure. So Windbreaker is basically a spy spoof type of comedy. So the situation happens as follows. One day, all of a sudden, millions of people all over the world suddenly are breaking wind at the same time, and they're all denying that they did it. but we all know the rules of the playground.
Yeah.
The one that denied it supplied it. So John Sterling has been called in to investigate, and he uncovers a sinister plot featuring the Whoopee Cushion Ninjas. And I'm not going to say much more about it, other than these guys are the bad guys in the story.
So it's giving me honest, like what do you call it? What's the Johnny English?
Yeah,
It's giving me those vibes, like James Bond, but goof, Austin Powers kind of thing.
yeah. When I was writing it, I was very sort of clear myself. John Sterling is a secret agent. He's got a tux. He's got a tuxedo on, all this business. What he isn't Inspector Clouseau. So he's not inept.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he doesn't bumble around, but you know, things will happen. Like if you've seen the trailer, at one point he falls through a skylight, and that's, you know, just that was a fun little thing. But that wasn't like every page is him like falling through doors or trap doors or anything like this. It's just trying to solve clues. And
That's a really interesting point. Just like putting a like, because you could have, it's like a good, that's a really, I think, intelligent like writing choice to be like, to know that like there's all those kind of tropes about like, oh, we're doing this goofy plot, like we could very easily just put a goofy main character, but like it works better to give you like a serious main character. I just think that's a really smart decision that a lot of people might not have done.
Yeah, thank you. I sort of want to try and keep him, sort of play him as straight as possible. I mean, yeah, there's points in the plot where you can have fun with various aspects of, you know, spy film lore, you know. But I think it's much more funny if he is like, he doesn't realize how silly the situation is, or how silly the plot is. Yeah, the plot, how silly the villain's scheme is. You know.
Yeah.
He's got a job to do, and he's going to do his best to make it work. You know. So yeah.
And so where did how'd you develop the idea? Like where did it come from? What was kind of the thing that you saw? It was like, hey, I want to do that.
Okay, I'm glad you asked it. I'm so glad you asked this question. Seriously, it came from my daughter, actually.
Okay.
She's 7, and
Yeah.
she thinks the coolest thing in the world is a whoopee cushion. And
Yeah.
So last Christmas, she wanted a whoopee cushion for Christmas. I mean, could have had a Barbie, but no, whoopee cushion.
Yeah.
So we got this whoopee cushion, and she just loves setting it up on, you know, in chairs and
Yeah.
out the room, and coming back in, going, "Oh, I'm just going to sit down over here." And so she came up with this idea of like the whoopee cushion ninja that hides them when no one's looking, and that was like, okay, that's our bad guy. John. Sorry, John. John was already created during lockdown.
Okay.
I'd made a mini comic every week for about 26 weeks for the initial lockdown. And one of the stories was John Sterling, super spy, and it was an early version of this guy, but he was in that story. He was more like Roger Moore. So every frame he had the cocked eyebrow, and so when we started to develop the story for Windbreaker, we sort of redefined his character a little bit more. So he wasn't just like a Roger Moore spoof, but we, you know, kept the name, and the character, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about like when you come up with like a short thing like that is like some of the ideas, you know, it's harder to, some things it's easier to do in a longer story. Or it's hard, like you need to there's some things you need to change just lengthening the story. So like I totally get that because I've had to do the same thing where I gave a short and then they were like, actually no, but do it again as a one shot. And so I'd like rewrite a whole story that I didn't have lore, like I didn't have a character that was big enough to do a whole story. Same thing's happening to me right now with a D&D campaign. I'm about to play my first campaign tomorrow. And one of the like I just needed a character, so I based it off of a short little comic that I'm making. But I
Okay.
realized the dungeon master was asking me because it's our all of our first time, so he was asking me like, if details about like backstory and things like that, because he's trying to make it all. He's doing a really good job of like weaving it all together. But like, it's just like he started asking me questions about my character's backstory, and I'm like, dude, I didn't think about this. Like my character, like I thought of him for the span of 16 pages. So like having to build out his entire backstory and details that I hadn't even considered, like it's a lot of work. So like I get where you're coming from in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing a D&D campaign? Is it,
Yeah, I'm
is your
I'm playing
first
my
time?
first one. Yep,
Have
tomorrow.
you, all right. And are you excited for it?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous because I'm mostly nervous because well, I mean, one, I've never done it, but like, I mean, it can't be that hard. That's not true. I played like one session, but we just weren't able to make it work out like play long term. But no, it's just I'm more nervous because it's a bunch of people that I don't know. I know
Okay.
one of them, and so, but it's like he knows me, and then there's all the other people that he knows, and I'm like, I don't know if they all know each other. Or I'm just kind of like entering this group, and I'm like, I don't know who these people are yet, but I'm sure it'll be good because he's a good guy, and so like I have no doubt that like the people he's with are good people. So, but yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it's everybody in the group's first time playing, so it'll be fun.
I
I
think that's
hope.
going to be. I think that's going to be very interesting because everyone's got the same. Everyone's coming from the same experience level. That they've never done this
Yeah,
before. Um, so I think you're going to have
yeah,
a fun time.
yeah. I'm really interested in like how like serious people are gonna take it, and like if like my level of seriousness is different than anyone else's, if that makes sense. Like I don't know if like how if these other people are gonna be very much like this is my character, I'm gonna role play this character specifically, and I'm not gonna do anything out of character, or like me, I'm more of a I mean just from the one time that I played like I said one session, like I was more just like yeah I had my character, but like I still like kind of was just goofing around and like having a good time. And so like,
Yeah,
I think it'll be interesting to see how everyone approaches it and like the dynamic of it all. You know what I mean? Because there are so many different ways to like think about it and stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. I guess, yeah, I think do you think that something like D&D or that sort of thing is a useful sort of storytelling device or a way to think about storytelling? You're creating a character, your character's reacting on and interacting with the story and the other people in the party. Do you think that's a useful way to sort of think about uh,
I,
writing story?
I'm, yeah, I've never thought about that, but like, I mean, I do think so. I mean, probably, I really, actually, I really think so because, I don't know if you're familiar with, uh, I assume you've heard of Critical Role.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have on Amazon Prime, they have their show, The Legend of Vox Machina, which is basically they took like parts of their campaign that they had live streamed as part of their Twitch channel, Critical Role, and they animated it into a like 10 episodes, two 10-episode seasons. And like it's really well done, but I think that's part of why it works really well is that the characters and the decisions the characters made are all like really based off of like people actually playing those characters for real, instead of just a bunch of writers in a
Mm.
room. So I think that adds some elements of like good storytelling to it. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I think that shows a good proof of what you're talking about.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I'm really sort of I don't know, as I write and draw more comics,
Hmm.
I get more and more interested in the idea of story and
Yeah,
how narrative can be used to sort of put forward. Yeah, it's just the idea of just narrative stuff. Um,
yeah.
I mean, like right now, Windbreaker is fun. We've got a week left on Windbreaker. That project's
Hmm.
actually finished. So now I'm sort of in sort of developing mode. So it's like
Yeah.
trying to think of ideas for stories and ideas for what the next project is going to be. And there's no at the moment. We're still sort of looking at a few ideas, and I don't know about you, but I quite like having I usually have my mobile phone with me. So if I hear an idea that, or someone says something
Yeah.
that sparks an idea, I'm sort of writing that down to a Google Doc as fast as I can, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
No, I definitely I do the same thing. I'll put it in a Google or I'll just have like a notes app that's full of just one lines about things that I don't remember what they're doing. Or I lately I started or not lately, but for a while there I just used the voice recorder and
oh
just
yeah, okay.
recorded because like that was for like longer for a story I had like I was thinking about the characters and their designs and everything while I was driving. And so instead of pull over and like write this long because it wasn't going to be like a simple it was like going to be a long I just recorded on my voice recorder and just like completely described what the characters look like and then later I just transcribed it into a Google Doc later. But like yeah, the voice recorder is also really helpful when I'm running if something happens while I'm running, because a lot of times I'll listen to podcasts while I run, and I'll just do that. Um, but so is there anything? Because like I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like you're like art. What do you think kind of has developed your art style to be like what it is? Because your art is like it's very you have different styles. Like you have like Windbreaker, what you're doing there is very different from like
Yeah,
your work in the comic from the Kitchen Anthology, which is very much more serious and stuff like that. And so it's just what's gone into like that the difference there of your art.
oh, it's every project I do, I sort of approach it as a way to sort of try something different with art style. I mean, okay,
Mhm.
this isn't planned, not planned at all. This is a page of comics that I did for an anthology last year called
Uh-huh.
DUI, and this one
Yeah.
is about a chimpanzee attack at a zoo. Um, it's different to John Sterling there.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got another one here somewhere. Here's a page from the story that I did with Lee back in the day. Again, it's a different style again, and I think like anthologies and like Windbreakers are one shot, so it's every those sort of projects are great opportunities to sort of try a different art style or try working in a different way. Training as a 2D animator, you tend to sort of have to adopt like 2D animation traditionally. You're always adopting whatever the hairstyle is for whatever project you're on. You know, that's why you have like
Uh-huh.
drawing guides and model sheets and things like this. So each project is a way to sort of try a different approach. I mean, one of the things I'm like to try it on a future project at some point is sort of like a cutout sort of Terry Gilliam approach to sort of creating a character. So you have sort of
Mhm.
a layer of cardboard with some eyes on there and nose and mouth, and you move it all around and pose your character. And that becomes a different way of making a comic, and that's something I really want to try with every book I do. I mean, Space Crash is consistent, so the art style for Space Crash is consistent across 5 books. But
Mhm.
if like Windbreaker style is different again, as is the other 2 examples I had there.
Yeah. And that's what I
Um,
was pulled off from my shelf was just like first of all,
yeah,
just like the style of that panel right there is just really different. And just in general, it's all just very much more like realistic, traditional style.
yeah. I mean, that was intentional. When I was
Uh-huh.
doing Boston Fiddle, it was always I was like, oh, it's a chance to write something about the Black Country, which is where I'm from. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, we could use the colours of the flag. Oh, it'd be brilliant. And it's stylistically, it's different as well. Windbreaker is
Yeah.
um, it's heavy on the jokes. It's heavy on sort of on humour, whereas Boston Fiddle it's more like a documentary because actually that's how the events unfolded. When you put out the call for for ideas and scripts, I sort of said I want to do something about grody pudding, which is the meal,
Mhm.
and I'd already planned a visit to my parents, so I sort of asked them about it. Then I sort of wrote down what they said, sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And so that's pretty much the dialogue when I went and saw them, and that's the events. That's all all the stuff that happened in that strip actually happened. You know, sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sitting on the sofa going, "Do I buy bird seed for my philosophy?" You know,
Yeah.
and so that was a chance to write in a different style, and I gave myself the constraints to sort of work within a limited color palette, and I wanted to be a bit more the art style to be as a little bit more realistic, and use maybe just like a thinner line, you know. And
Yeah.
that's how we set that. That's how I sort of approached that particular project, and sort of, you know,
Yeah. No, I like it's. Go ahead.
sorry, go on. Oh, I was going to say, I've talked about this stuff before, and it's, for me, this is like it's a bit like David Bowie, right? He goes through phases, and no two albums are the same. You know, it's a David Bowie album, but like one is dressed up as a clown, the other one is dressed up like some soul singer, or he's Ziggy Stardust, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that idea of sort of reinvention. So that, you know, I don't think we should be getting ourselves stuck in sort of ruts. I mean, we can always go back and revisit styles and do them again, you know, do other projects in the
Yeah.
same style. And it's a bit like an anthology is a really good opportunity to sort of work in a different style with an end goal and an end product in mind that, you know, it's going to get printed. And it's a really good opportunity to sort of grow or at least acquire new sort of ideas and skills and things like this.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Are you a, I can't remember. Are you a Comic Jam guy?
I am. I am on the Comic
Okay,
Jam.
that's
Yes.
I just can't remember which of the people that I know is from the Comic Jam, which aren't from the Comic Jam, and who like has done anyway. That's what I like about them is that if I like do like it's my chance to like force myself to letter in like different styles and to letter in ways that I wouldn't before and to learn new things. So I really like kind of like what you're talking about with anthologies. Like, I mean, I did the same thing for both my stories in Comics from the Kitchen, which I this one I don't know how it landed. I is what it is. But I just it's another silent comic and it's all just colors, no outlines. It's not I don't know how I feel about it. Part of me really likes it, part of me really doesn't. But then
But
go ahead.
at least you've tried it though. That's the thing,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Um,
And I like because I know what I was going for. I was going for like a Katie O'Neill T Dragon Aquacorn Cove vibe, but it didn't really turn out that way. But yeah, you're right. Like it's a lot. But then this was also a big swing too. This one I'm actually really proud of. But like yeah, it's just I agree with what you're saying about like it's a good opportunity. It's a good idea to be forcing yourself to mix it up instead of just staying in what you're comfortable in because it forces you to get better and to like improve.
yeah. If nothing else, if and when you're doing when you're pitching stuff to anthologies, right? I mean, so, depending on how it's organized, sometimes they want a story out the blue. Sometimes you pitch them an idea and you produce it.
Mhm.
But you know, like even with the idea, worst case scenario, they turn around and say, actually, nah, nah, this
Yeah.
this too avant garde, it's too out there for us. You've still got a comic of X number of pages that you've made, and you
Exactly.
can do things with. It's not lost, you know. Yeah,
I'm glad someone else has that mindset because I worry that other people won't have that mindset. But anyway, how because I agree with you that you know at least you have a story. That's like covers are different. Like people who do anthology covers because that cover is just lost. But like um doing so I like to make sure those people get what they you know get their credit. But like stories, it's like you have your opportunity to use it again. No one's you know owns that story. It's your story still.
yeah.
So I'm with you on that. But this is your first time running a Kickstarter campaign. How are you finding that?
Um, it's an emotional roller coaster.
Hmm.
We're a week left, and we're 21% funded. The
Yep.
reality is that, in all reality, it's very possible this thing won't fund. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been proven wrong before, but I mean, and I'm okay with that because there's like there's an opportunity to learn some things. Um, I mean, in prepping for the Kickstarter, I wrote a series of small computer programs. Remember, I said I was nerdy,
Oh
which
man.
would accurately predict the weight of a book and how much it would cost to send from the printers. And
Hmm.
it's close within about £2, like in terms of money, in terms of cost.
Yeah.
So if I say how much would my printer charge me to send 100 books, these page dimensions, these page weights, how much would it cost? It's X amount, and you go, okay, I've got an idea now how much it would cost, and it's so close. It's a really good predictor, um, and you know we've there's a lot of sort of useful things that I learned about sort of budgeting, things like this,
Hmm.
and you know the whole point is Windbreaker's done. As in the book is finished. And so what the money wasn't going to buy time; it was going to buy speed.
Hmm.
So the idea was that with the funds raised, we could get things moving really quickly in terms of getting things printed and sent back and then sent out. Um, and so the contingency plan is like, if that fails, then okay, we're going to have to wait maybe a month or two,
Hmm.
save
Yeah.
up some pennies and stuff, and then go that way and tell everyone that backed it, look, if you're still interested in the book, then we're going to get it printed this way
Yeah.
instead.
And
So,
that's another really like I think healthy mindset is that like it's not it's that you're not buying time, you're buying speed. Like you're it's just a Kickstarter is there to expedite the process to make it easier. And I understand that not everyone is in a position where they can do that. You and I are lucky, especially being artists and writers, that we are not having to, because a lot of writers, are having to make sure that they get artists paid and things like that. And that's a whole other side of um, uh, Kickstarter funding that's a huge pain is trying to make sure that you can raise that much money to not only print and ship, which is expensive, but also um, um, to pay your artists.
yeah. I mean, yeah, as a writer artist and yourself, um, we don't have that constraint on us in terms of
Mhm.
paying an artist. It's our time, you know.
Yeah,
Um, um, I would say it's not cheap. Like our time isn't cheap, but there is
yeah,
still like you spend X number of months working on a book or something, Um, you know, if you're doing that as a work for hire, then yeah, absolutely, that's a lot of time that needs to a certain extent compensating,
yeah.
But we're lucky in that regards. We don't have um, that sort of constraint on us. Yeah.
So, what do you find yourself like reading nowadays, like in terms of comics and things like that?
It's a good question. This is a good question. I'm really into small press comics.
Hmm.
So I don't really read like the big two. So it's
Hmm.
for me, small press it's there's an authenticity to it. There's a sort of street level sort of vibe that you don't get with like I'm doing air quotes here, air quotes, with like mainstream books.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the last book I read was a big, oversized book called Blop and the Pigeon Pandemic, and it's written by Alex Hahn. And it was a Kickstarter book I backed, and I backed quite a few Kickstarters. It's a fun. kids sort of book, sort of roughly, I reckon roughly the same sort of age group for like Windbreaker. A load of
Mhm.
guys, a load of Martians, and yeah, it's fun. There is a book I'm hoping to. Well, I should really get back in it. It's his last 24 hours, and it's a book about a couple that adopt a greyhound, and it's
Mhm.
just a lovely story. My wife is a big fan of greyhounds, and I bought her the first copy, and she was like reading it. It's
Oh,
got a tear in her eye, sort of thing, you know.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
read. I like small presses. Just it's a great platform for people to tell their stories. You know.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's how like, the best way that people are gonna get like, I don't know, just like stories that mean something to them even. Like it just Windbreaker is a good example, especially considering it's like your daughter's story, a story your daughter like essentially came up with. So
yeah.
like it's just Kickstarter is a great place for things like that because
Uh,
things like
yeah.
that don't get the market in um mainstream comics.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sort of, I love that sort of stuff. Yeah. What about yourself? What are you reading these days?
I just now I the latest thing I've read is I just started The Wicked and the Divine and um Amulet, the all ages comic from I don't know who publishes that, but probably Scholastic or something. But it's like on it has like 9 volumes. It's one of like the most popular kids comics. And so I finally I this year I read Bone for the first time a couple months ago, and I just decided because Amulet's in the same vein, I might as well hit that one too.
Uh,
Also, I read and listened to an interview with the writer, so.
oh, that sounds great. I picked up a copy of Bone. It was a partial a volume. It's not volume one. It was somewhere in the middle years ago.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I love Jeff Smith's artwork on that. It was a clean line. There's lovely use of sort of like blacks in
Hmm.
there. Uh, just the texture on the faces, you know. It was a joy to read. So yeah,
Yeah. No, it
Amulet.
got me on a. What was that?
Amulet, right? Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
Amulet by Kazu Kibuichi.
Okay. All
But
right. I shall.
yeah, that's but no, Bone is one that like it's a classic like comic independent comic. So I like finally got to it, and it just wasn't. I mean, it was good, and I loved it up until like the last volume, and then I wasn't really I didn't like the ending. But that's
All
just
right.
me in my opinion. I posted a TikTok about it, and some other people agreed, some people disagreed, but I don't know. It was worth a read because, like you said, like it's just really clean. It's really well done. You can't deny that. Like the art and everything is just really
Mhm.
um great. And then like after that, I went and read he has a book with DC called Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil, and so I got that from my library as well. And it was really weird because like I just read 9 volumes of Bone, and then to see his art style on like a classic character like Shazam was just really jarring. I was like, whoa, that's not what I'm used to seeing your art style in. But I'd still recommend it. Take a look at it because, especially the black and white versions, from what I've seen online, the black and white is a lot better than the color, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's just me. No, other than that, I read a lot of single issues. I not a lot, but like probably I say I get about 4 to 5 a month. Just little things here and there. It's not all good, but the problem is I'm a completionist. And so once I start pulling something, I want to finish it. And so,
Right.
yeah, that just stinks because like I mean, I guess you don't read, excuse me, you're not really reading like
Oh,
mainstream
well,
books, but like Immortal Thor by Al Ewing is not, I'm not loving it. And so like I keep telling myself I need to drop it, but I'm like, no, what if it gets really good? And so it's hard for me to do that.
I see. I see. Yeah. I mean, over the pandemic, I was able to track. It sounds like a completionist thing. I was able to track down the full 9 issues of a UK Marvel anthology series called Havoc. I remember picking up one. I mean, I bought one copy of, I think it was issue 4, back in the late 80s, and I remember it, and I thought, oh, I gotta find this. And it sort of I spent the most of that pandemic sort of lockdown just tracking down the remaining sort of issues. That was kind of interesting. That was kind of interesting. I mean, like, yeah, completionism great, but I mean, it's like, well, what about if it's like hundreds and hundreds of issues? I mean, are you dedicated to collect them all?
Yeah, that's mine. My problem is the one comic that I actually collect is what is Mark Spector Moon Knight. It's like one of the first comics that I got like at a thrift store. I got like it was like a little arc, and so there were like 4 parts to it, and the thrift store only had parts 1, 2, and 3. So I eventually hunted down 4, and then I was just like, screw it. So it's like a 50 issue series, and I'm just like just slowly picking it up. It's almost just like a game, you know? It's not even that I really am dying to read it. It's just like I like having the being able to collect this thing that I used to really like. You know, so I guess that nostalgia factor is a big thing. I feel like that makes me sound old, but I'm not, I promise.
Yeah, they can't underestimate the power of like the power of yesteryear sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like I could probably do that as a story. That sounds like a good idea. But anyway, while we're winding down here, I guess, is there anything else that you want to say about Windbreaker or anything like that?
Well, I mean, it's like to sweeten the deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I publish all my own comics under the name Any Key Press, and Any Key Press physical books always have a mini comic in them. So you know, if people back the book, there will be a digital, not digital. If people back the physical, there will be a mini comic thrown in there. It'll be a remastered version of the original John Sterling story, and we'll make a digital version so that if anyone backs the digital, then they can get the digital version with the little free mini comic. That's about it, really.
I love that idea. I love that I was trying to do that for a while, and then I ended up not publishing anything for a minute. So, but like it had in every issue, I was gonna have I had a backup in like my comic Valkyrian, and I was like dead set. Every issue I do now is gonna have a backup in it, and just because I want to give people like the most bang for their buck. You know what I mean? Like make sure that it's worth their time and money and spending all that in the first place.
Yeah.
So I really think that's a good idea to bring people in, because it's not even like you're just saying here's another thing in the same book. Like you're giving a whole other thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah.
And so why don't you go ahead and let the people know where they can find you online?
Oh, that's a good question. Good point. So I'm on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week.
Whatever.
It's Hingley_Dave. That's going to be your best bet to find me. I'm on Instagram, but I can never remember the name. If you give me a second, I will endeavor to remember what it's called. I think it's just Dave Hingley, to be honest.
It might be. I can't remember. I'm not on Instagram as much as I should be.
It's really hard to go on Instagram.
That sounds really dystopian to say. I hate that I said that.
Well, I love Instagram, but Instagram doesn't like. Instagram wants you to use a phone to put everything up online, which is a bit of a pain if you've got stuff on a desktop computer. So on Instagram, I'm just Dave Hingley on Instagram.
Okay.
If you find me on Twitter, if you look at my bio, there's a links to all kinds of useful stuff there, including like the physical digital shop, and give us a follow on Twitter, and say hi.
Yeah, and definitely to everybody, go back. This will probably go up. I'll make this go up before the campaign ends. But yeah, just go and back the campaign, give it a share. The best thing anyone can do is I've learned the two best things people can do is to just share it, and then the next best thing that I've learned recently is just to back it for even just $1. That back at the lowest tier, you don't even have to back for a reward. Just put $1, and that goes a long way towards increasing their backer count. It makes it look better in their numbers. It gives you the option to even share out, hey, I just backed Windbreaker on Kickstarter. And so it's just a great way to make sure that everybody is getting their voice out there and you're helping as much as you can. So definitely go do that. Like I said, even just $1, go back some campaigns. It's a huge help to all the independent publishing people who work this way. But anyway, Dave, that is all I had for you. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me on there, Kyle. Thanks for having me on there, Kyle. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me. It's been great.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to do that.